having a podcast moves the needle. It elevates your authority in the eyes and the ears of the person who's probably searching for a solution. And now they know they want to solve it, but now they're picking who. And in my experience, the vendor, the coach, the mentor, the consultant, whoever it is, with the most authority, when all other factors are equal, gets the business.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand.
If you're like most experts, you feel like you've been on so many podcasts, summits, and panels, and you're wondering if it's all worth the time. And as you know, building profitable personal brands is all we do, and we can't stress enough the importance of positioning, packaging, and presenting yourself and your superpower with great clarity first. And once you do that, you can leverage that brand to make all of your appearances profitable. And that's where today's guest comes in. We're speaking with Melanie Benson, Authority Amplifier and Possibility Ignitor for Expert-preneurs. I think I got all that right. That's fantastic. She has a proven track record of accelerating results for her clients by helping them leverage, get this, other people's audiences.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, Melanie.
Thank you for having me. It's quite a privilege to be joining you in this conversation.
Back at you, Melanie.
Yes, that's for sure. So we're very interested in what we're going to learn here today. And I know there's at least one person out there that's got to have exactly what you're going to teach us today. So, let's get started. When we have our guest on, we like to start off with a little bit of their background, right? So, what got you into the space that you're in now? You want to give us a quick overview?
Yeah, well, I came out of the corporate world and I've been doing this 23 years almost. What got me here was completely feeling unaligned with the corporate path that I was on. And I'd like to think of it like those kids' workbenches where there's all these different holes that you could pound your little mallet and the shape. And I felt like I was never the right shape and never could find my fit. And I just felt like my soul was being sucked dry on that path. And I kind of fell into this thing called coaching because it was the clearest path between what I did a lot of in corporate, which was help people achieve unrealistic, crazy big goals in record time. And I knew how to ignite other people to working with me to achieve the goal, even if they had no direct responsibility for it. And so that just became this path that made sense to me. And as I took training and learned about coaching, I just fell in love with the world of learning how to retrain our mind, the power of the right question to be a huge catalyst to shift our perspective and our action. So here I am 22 years later with quite a few evolutions under my belt, but I can't imagine doing anything else ever because this work is so powerful and it truly has the ability to transform not just individuals, but I think collectively we can make a very positive transformation on this planet through coaching.
That's so true. And I love that word ignite. It's a powerful word. Not everybody uses it. I love what it stands for. Having been a show host, for as long as you have, do you see some common mistakes that people make when they're on shows, kind of getting back to the focus of, okay, how do we leverage other people's audiences, right? What are some common mistakes people are making that just keep them from getting good results? Because we hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. We work with a lot of speakers, authors, podcasters, et cetera. And when they first come to us, they say, well, I've done this show for so long, but I really haven't gotten results. So I would love to hear from you, your experience.
Well, I guess one of the things about being an amplifier is you figure out what people are doing half right or not right at all. And then you do little tiny course corrections and then they get these huge results. So backing up for a minute, I've been hosting conversations for 15 years, but even before podcasts really emerged. And, we didn't have live streaming back then. It was like the good old days. But what I found is that there is a real desire to get in front of new audiences if we want to attract leads. And so when podcasting emerged, I quickly started a podcast. I have been doing 3 podcasts now, but I have 2 currently. And when people would come on my show, or I would have a conversation with a colleague and they would say, Melanie, is this really going to work? I've been on all these podcasts and it's just crickets. And I would say, well, I actually regularly attract 4 and 5 figure clients from being a guest on other people's podcasts or other people's stages. So it got me curious, what is it that some people do well and some people don't do at all? And there's 3 key that I think are super big deal breakers. I have 17 that I've kind of tracked over the years, but we can unpack that later. 1, your topic. 2, your pitch, how you go about asking somebody to be on their show. And 3 is how you craft the conversation so it's compelling. So do you want me to dig into those a little? Or
Love to hear that.
Okay. Well, let me actually start with the pitch. So pitching is daunting, right? People are like, oh, somebody's got this successful podcast, or they're like, well, they don't know me. Should I really reach out? And we can get in our head really easily. But the one thing about a pitch is to remember that you're reaching out to a human being who spends a lot of time, money, and energy developing their show. So you want to lead with value, but you also want to really understand what is it that works to get on someone's show. And so I'm a huge fan of asking, hey, I really love your show. I think I have a topic that might be a great fit. Would you be open to exploring, the topic? Or you might see documented what their podcast pitch process is. Use it. I get about 200 pitches a week, sometimes through social media, a lot of times through email. And I don't have time. I actually started having my assistant reading them because I can't keep up with them. And most of them are not really aligned. So when you pitch, what you want to do is really understand, where is my superpower? Where is my secret sauce? And how is that going to translate to a valuable topic for that show host? So do the pitch well, be humble, be authentic, and I felt really bad because somebody was like, man, you're making this person feel bad. I had the worst pitch ever where they were just copying and pasting this template. I know you guys got these too. They left the brackets of show name in the pitch.
Oh,
They got my name wrong. And then they did some weird stuff like, here's a video to convince you that you want to choose me. And I was like, oh, it's wrong on so many levels. So the more humble and more real and just know, you want to add value to this person's life, but, kind of watch the details. So details are important. You guys have a podcast, a show that's very specific. You're talking about branding and personal brands. I talk about amplifying your authority and amplifying the reach of your work in the world, staying your superpowers. Know what the topic is that's going to have an impact to that show host and the community. So I have a theory, this is what I teach, is that there are a lot of people that think all visibility is good visibility. I believe that targeted visibility, aligned visibility is what we want to do. We're all busy. You don't need to be on every show. When people pitch me to be on their show, I actually go and research the show. I look at the topic. I look at the audience. I look at the type of speakers and experts and conversations that are already emerging and say, are my people listening to the show before I say yes?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you pick the topic, you need to think about, is this topic a good showcase for me and my work and going to pull people to what I call the gold thread? So this is actually where things start to erode for people. They're on all the wrong podcasts. They're just saying yes because they think it's good to be having exposure. And then they don't have a relevant topic. And then they don't know how to build a golden thread between that topic and the conversation and what's relevant to the audience or the host for that matter. And then some kind of next step that gets people wanting to take action. That's when things really fall apart for people. You can spend hours and hours and hours being on all of the shows, but if they're not aligned and really built to speak to your audience, then it's not really going to showcase well, and you're not going to see that steady stream of great clients and leads coming into whatever it is that you do, whatever your offer is.
Yeah, we could not agree more. When we started in podcasting, we really wanted to start promoting that a lot and getting on shows. We were sort of pre the dating match platforms. So we had an intern in the office that was looking up podcasts and then sending letters, emails, making a spreadsheet on Excel or Google Sheets, trying to figure out, have I pitched this person? Can we do this? Why did they say no? Can we go back to them? And trying to get us on there. And then all this podcasting match games started the platforms, and we got on a bunch of them. And then the next thing you know, we're doing what you said. We're in podcast after podcast after podcast after podcast, and we're scratching our heads and we're like, we're getting exposure, but we're not talking to the people that need us. We're not adding that value to our host that had us on. And when we did that, it did make a big difference, a huge difference.
So we actually got connected originally through Podmatch, and then you reached out via social media, which I thought was really smart. And I'll tell you why. Podmatch and companies like that are a relationship bridge. And I find that oftentimes my best conversations, my best interviews emerge because there's already some kind of connection with somebody, and we want to amplify the reach of that conversation so more people can listen. I am so blessed to have the most amazing conversations with super smart people. And I'm like, it's selfish for me to keep this to myself. Like, I want to share this with a bigger audience. And I'm sure that's why one of the catalysts for you having your podcast. But we don't have time to build relationships with everybody. So I like companies like Podmatch, there's several of them out there, to kind of be a door opener and help you vet those relationships out a little bit to get things started. So
agreed. That's that
big difference.
First pass screening, if you will. Yeah. And I enjoyed how we connected because it was like, okay, I really love the topic. I think that ours would align with that really well. What do you think kind of approach? I don't remember the exact words, but we were just like, hey, ours do align. Maybe we should do a show swap. And it's like, absolutely, let's do it. But I think that's knowing that they were very much aligned. So I do have a question for you. So we have a lot of people reach out to us because, the topic is all about personal branding. Well, we have a lot of personal branding people reach out to us and ask to be on the show. Like they do, in theory, the personal branding blocks, if you will, or think they do the same thing. And we think we do the same things, right? Everybody's a little bit different. But they're reaching out to us and saying, hey, I want to be on your program because you talk about personal branding and I'm a personal brander. So what do you think about the competitive nature of having your competitors on your show?
Love this question. Actually, no, I don't think anybody's ever asked me this before. So I am a fan of transforming competition into collaborative partners, right? When we can. And I think it can't always be done, but I think 99% of the time there's opportunity there. And so let's just unpack this for a second and say, they teach what we teach and they teach it to our aligned audience, right? That's true competition.
True.
So let's say somebody's got that double, alignment there. Could we find a way to teach a piece of the puzzle that I don't teach? So do they have in their, I call them in their showstoppers, these are the things that we get well known for. They're kind of like signature talks or signature concepts that we teach. Do they have a signature concept that doesn't completely trample yours, right?
Right.
So there's synergy rather than competitive energy. So example, there's a woman, we literally have a very similar program we teach. I teach guest expert system. She has something similar, although she does it a little bit different. But to the market, we're very similar offers. And we kept looking at where's the collaborative opportunity? So what we did is we created a conversation that spotlighted both of us, but highlighted something about the do's and don'ts of pitching podcasters. So how do you do it in a way that sets you up well? Because we both get a lot of pitches that were like, oh my gosh, you could do this so much better. And so we've intentionally created a conversation that allowed both of us visibility, but wasn't necessarily one person teaching the same thing the other person were. So I think you can do it. But when you pitch, here's the thing. Do your research. Find the problem that your competitor is creating that you specialize in solving.
Good point.
What I would do.
Yeah.
Good point. Good
That's
point.
a real good one.
And I know I've had a couple of conversations with people in the personal branding space where they handle an entirely different type of ideal customer than we do. And that's another reason to combine forces. If you can teach a certain topic and their ideal customers organically gravitate toward them and yours gravitate toward you, or you just call them out, right? Like there was a point in time several years ago where we mostly handled the real estate world. We were working almost exclusively with real estate. And that would be a good point where we could combine with somebody else and they handled maybe, veterinarians or insurance agents or something like that, right? So I could see how that alignment could work. Definitely. I was just curious what you thought about that. And it's very interesting. I think we think alike.
Yes, I'm finding the synergy unfold in every moment. Okay, so I always say start with the end in mind. And I think this is a fourth mistake of the 17 that I kind of clock with people is you don't really know why you're going out and guesting. You just saw other people doing it, or you got told, hey, you should be guesting on podcasts or be a speaker on stages. You can translate this to anything, but you don't really have a definite outcome in mind. And so it's like not knowing where the dart is supposed to land, and it doesn't, and you're thinking, oh, I'm getting points just by throwing the dart on the wall. But really, there's only one spot that's getting, or a few spots that are getting you good points. Not that I know how to play darts or anything, but when you are looking at the guesting strategy and you're wanting to share your message and align with other people, ask yourself, is it the exposure? Do you care which audience you're in front of? And for you as the host, like let's just flip the mic for a second. Do you care what audiences your guest has? And how much do you care what the guest can bring to the table in terms of sharing with their audience? And so for some people, if you just want to sell books and you don't have like a super targeted niche that book needs to get to, you're going to be less picky about which audience you're in front of. You just want to move books. But if you really care about clients, or you're looking for more speaking opportunities, or you want to collaborate and you're really opening up collaboration opportunities with your host, I think you want to really kind of pay attention to those audience alignment factors and say, is this setting me up for a good return on my investment of time, energy, and for some people who are financially investing in that spotlight money?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about collaboration killing the calendar, right? And it's a funny moment, but that was the spot we got into until about 6 or 8 months ago. We were hitting the ground so hard. And, like you get so many requests a day and people were coming at us saying, I really want to collaborate. I think we're aligned. I want to collaborate. And it's like, awesome. But even then, you have to really carefully look at where you spend your time. And these are the tough decisions that entrepreneurs have to make. With our big hearts, we want to meet with everybody. Oh, sure, I know there's synergy here. There's synergy everywhere, right? And it's true, there's synergy everywhere, but some synergy is more profitable than others. Let's face it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do think that you have to take a look at that and weigh that out a lot. Is there a point or two that you can give about the best way to leverage other people's audiences? Is that, you're better off to be a guest than you are to be a host? You think it's good to do both? Is it like, what's some things that a listener might really want to put to work in helping to leverage other audiences?
Yeah, what a great question. So I don't think there's one size fits all. I think it, again, goes back to your goals. But then the second layer is, what are your superpowers? What is that lever that when you ramp that lever up and you're spending more time in that superpower, you are flooded with opportunity, you're flooded with ideal clients, you're flooded with the growth that you're looking for. And it's, bright, shiny object syndrome is real.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness, yes.
There's a million things you could be doing. You want to really understand, what moves the needle for me? For me, having a podcast moves the needle. But not everybody's good at that. I started my podcast as a business growth decision to help elevate my authority in a market that was rapidly changing. And I wanted to keep a relevant conversation going. It's a tool for me to open up collaborations, to be able to get invitations back to other people's shows when it's appropriate, and to make a greater impact with my message and reach exponentially beyond what I could do on my own. My podcast makes me money. My podcast is what I call a binge technique. So when people oftentimes hear me on someone else's stage, they're interested, but we still have to build some rapport, right? We have to build some connection up. So a lot of times what will happen is they're like, oh, she hosts Amplify Your Success. well, this is an easy way for me to check her out and see if she's real, is she smart, like whatever their factors are. And most of my clients who reach out and schedule a fast track call and then book in with me, they've binged my podcast for somewhere between 3 and 5 days. And then they're like, oh yeah, this is who I want to work with.
You are so right. Yeah, we hear that a lot. Hey, I've seen 10 or 15 of your videos already. I feel like I know you, right? And I love that response. Podcasting has been so wonderful for that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it elevates your authority in the eyes and the ears of the person who's probably searching for a solution. And now they know they want to solve it, but now they're picking who. And in my experience, the vendor, the coach, the mentor, the consultant, whoever it is, with the most authority, when all other factors are equal, gets the business.
Yep.
Sure does. Sure does. So I'm interested to know, if you could only host or only guest, which one would you do?
Wow, what a tough question. I think I would probably guest. It's a very difficult decision because they go so well together. But I think being a guest is easier for 99% of the people on this planet than hosting a show. You know, when you're hosting, there is a commitment to consistency, to brand alignment, as you know, to, you know, you're investing your money into producing something. And so there's a lot of pieces to make sure it works well. I'm sure you heard that during COVID and the pandemic, the amount of podcasts soared exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
It growed almost like 3 times. And then as the pandemic started to close and people started going back to their lives, it dumped, like they're like somewhere around like 40% of those podcasts stopped functioning. And that's because people were like, oh, this is a lot of work. And so I don't want to deter people because it's a valuable part of your business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take commitment. Yes.
That's great.
I love it. It takes a lot of commitment. It does, because, you know, in the moments where it's like, oh man, I'm so tired, but I do have to write the outline for this. I've got to write the right questions for it. I've got to formulate the points for it, like 5 ways you're going to do this, or 6 things you shouldn't do, or things like that. You have to be prepared. You can't just like flip the mic on and go off the cuff.
Especially for us, like we're a duo, right? And we've been a duo since day one. And so Tanya's like the writer. So she's writing and she's like, we got to do a live. And I'm like, I've got 3 meetings right here. And I'm like, when can we do this? And then you run from one meeting and you slide in here in the roller chair, you know, and you and you shoot that live and you're off again, changing shirts.
Congratulations for doing that.
You know, sometimes that's exactly what it is, Melanie. It's just doing it. Just doing it.
Yeah, you have to just do it.
And by doing it so often, you do get better at it, and you're able to articulate your points better, because it's really about teaching. Because we do one solo, or what we call a duo episode, by ourselves, no guest. And then we do one with a guest every week. And so there's a difference between those two, which kind of keeps us on our toes, which is pretty awesome. But that's aside from guesting on shows. So podcasters have to wear a lot of hats.
They do. And I personally enjoy the ones where we have guests and where we are guests, because then you're adding in a component of learning from people and having synergy, like you said earlier, like we definitely have with you. And to me, it's just that much better. I don't mind the lives, and I do feel like we're giving good benefit to people, but I like it when we have guests or we are guests, because I'm getting to meet somebody new and learn something new from them. So I enjoy those more than just the
Yeah. I should probably back up and say one of the reasons why I think guesting is so powerful has a lot to do with how much growth I experienced by being a guest expert on people's live stages.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something that happens when you are a guest on someone else's stage where you are tapping into and borrowing their authority. So it's an accelerator.
It is.
Totally agree. And we've found too that when you're a guest, you end up sharing more of your expertise and what your story is and what you're all about, which is the way it should be, because we want to learn from the guests. And so when we're a guest on somebody else's podcast, people get to know more about us that way. They get to know our entire story and how we help people and what qualifies us to help people and all those things that make a personal brand so important. That's why I feel like we've gotten more bang for our buck from guesting than we have hosting. However, both are incredibly, to your point, both are incredibly important.
Yeah. What would you say would be one bold move that pays off big time when you're pitching to get on popular podcasts? Is there a good go-to?
Just do it.
Yeah.
Like, be willing to start the conversation. I think a lot of people are waiting for an invitation, and maybe there's some imposter syndrome where you're like, I don't know, am I ready? Like, when I put people through Guest Expert System, I'm like, pick 3 podcasts and you're going to pitch them. Like, just be willing to do it and learn from it. And best case scenario, you're going to land it. Worst case scenario, you're not going to hear back. And like, okay, so next.
Yeah.
I think when you know how to pitch well, and I say that because sometimes people are like, they're maybe burning the bridge because they're pitching really badly. Well, when you have a process of reaching out that gets you in front of the right people, then you are going to move the needle faster on building your audience of aligned potential clients or whatever that goal is that you have.
Yeah.
So true. So true. We have 2 more questions for you, Melanie. First, if our listeners have the freedom, this one's a personal one, have the freedom to visit anywhere in the world, where would you recommend that they visit and why?
Italy.
Why?
Well, okay, it's a hard choice between Italy and my our backyard is Malibu. So it's like, it's beautiful here. But to me, Italy transports us to a time when our culture was so different and it's so rich. It's like there's just this extraordinary energy that's available to us in another culture. And to me, Italy's magical. I've been all around Italy. I've been to all the beautiful places there, but I am a different person when I'm in that part of the world. And
totally can embrace that.
Yeah. And the wine, the food, like we went to Capri and like, it's just like the most extraordinary, ocean experience. It's just, enrich your mind so that you bring that enrichment back into the creativity and the expansion of your soul when you're working in your business.
Yeah, agreed. We love the Mediterranean. One of our goals is to see all of the countries in the Mediterranean. So we're hacking away at that. I definitely agree. Italy's great. So, Melanie, what's the best way for people to learn more about you or contact you to work with you and help them move the needle, especially in their podcasting?
Welcome to GoToMelanieBenson.com. All kinds of great resources there. But I have a resource that I'm going to gift to the audience today. We've mentioned a few times the mistakes, and I share mistakes so that you know how to flip them and turn them into assets, that you turn them into actionable steps that are going to get you results in your podcast guesting. If you go to MelanieBenson.com/BeBoldBrand, I don't know if you catch the synergy there.
Absolutely.
But easy to remember that way. You can download my 17 common mistakes that guest experts make that are costing them the lead and the client. And what I do is I turn it into a scorecard for you so you can kind of evaluate where you're at with it. And then I'll help you unpack the different mistakes / things that you could be doing so that you're turning those podcast guest opportunities into a gold mine of connections and leads and potential clients.
I love it. This topic could not be more timely because as people are getting on more and more podcasts, they want to know that their time is well spent, that they're able to take that brand that they have created and leverage that and amplify that through this, to your point, and make sure that they're profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And profitable, really, I think we all know we need to have financial flow and we need to have money coming in to continue to do the work we're doing. But profitable also means you're co-creating a profitable and rich dynamic with your co-hosts. Like, I think there's so much positive good that comes out of collaborating with other people through being on each other's podcasts and, getting your message in front of new audiences.
True.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I love the podcasting world because it seems like everybody approaches it from a place of abundance. And in so many other industries in the world where they don't approach life like that, I happen to think that there's abundance everywhere you look, and no matter what your industry is, it's where you focus on that. But podcasting is still young enough that people are very willing to help and they want to see you succeed. And I think that's an awesome space to be. And I thank you for being a part of that.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you for inviting me. And yes, I think abundance and that abundance mindset is very much a part of the podcasting world. But I think the more of us that stand for that and speak it out loud, we're teaching people that there's a lot more that can happen when we co-create rather than compete, right?
Love it. Love that.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.